All right, welcome back to Crew Call with the Scooters. Quartz, do you want to do the wonderful introduction of our
Yes. Yes. Today we have the honor of speaking with Mike Jones, who is a partner at McMillan, York, Tosi and Jones in Beaver County, a top law firm in that county. So we're so happy to have you join us today, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So one, if we could talk, I hope I don't screw this up. You're the president of the PA Bar Association?
No, I'm the president. That's okay. I'm actually the president of the Beaver County Bar Association.
Oh, okay.
I'm also very involved with the Pennsylvania Bar Association.
And are you part of I'm just giving you every leadership position in the world. Leadership of the COVID-19 task force?
Yeah, so the current president of the Pennsylvania Bar Association, her name is Ann John. She's actually a Western Pennsylvania lawyer. And she, back in early to mid-March, when the virus, it was clear the virus was going to have an impact on our area, she created quickly a task force of attorneys from all over Pennsylvania. I think there are 17 or 18 members of the task force right now. And she appointed me to chair that task force. So since that time, we've had a couple of virtual meetings, just like everyone's doing these days, and identified what we thought were really critical needs for attorneys across the Commonwealth. And the first thing that we felt needed to be done was to create a resource guide so that attorneys from small law firms, big law firms, legal services, and attorneys practicing in every area of law in Pennsylvania had a resource to go to just to stay updated on what's happening, not just with the practice of law, but in the various state and federal courts in Pennsylvania. So we actually put that together in about 7 to 10 days, that resource guide, and it's available on the PBA website right now. So it's really a good resource for attorneys with really any types of issues, including what we're all dealing with isolation, mental health issues, and things like that. So it provides a great asset, I think, to attorneys really across all of Pennsylvania.
Now, is that updated as it goes, as things come in, or is that pretty standard for now?
It is. It's loaded with links. So those links are updated. So some of those links go directly to the administrative office of the Pennsylvania courts. So you could actually locate the most updated court orders, not only from the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, Superior Court, but also county courts. Not that every county court necessarily is going to be in that link, but if a court has issued an order that's COVID related, then that order would be available through a link on that resource.
What do you think the major challenges are right now for law firms during this, not just in Pennsylvania, but across the country?
Well, they're facing the same challenges as a lot of businesses. So just to speak to Pennsylvania for a moment, the governor's order, Governor Wolf's order in Pennsylvania, actually declared that legal services were non-essential. So that was back in the beginning of March, which meant that law offices had to close. Subsequent to that, and actually pretty quickly after that, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court issued an order that really gave the discretion to the various counties through their president judge, and the president judge in Beaver County is Judge Rick Mancini, gave the president judges the discretion to determine what were essential legal services in order to keep the courts open. So there are some counties where, for all intents and purposes, the court is closed. When I say that, I don't mean just to the public coming and going from the court, but also in large part the ability to get to services in the courthouse, which would include register of wills, recorder of deeds, all civil matters, criminal matters, things like that. So Judge Mancini issued a pretty comprehensive order in Beaver County identifying areas of essential legal services. So because of that, at least again in Beaver County, law firms can remain open to the extent that those services are associated with those essential areas of law that Judge Mancini has determined. And again, it's on a county by county basis, and that's why this resource I mentioned earlier is valuable, because it allows lawyers in different counties to see exactly what's happening in their county and what they can and can't do. So because of that, and our office is a medium-sized law firm. We're just north of the Pittsburgh International Airport. Although we have closed our doors to the public, our clients can still access us and contact us through, obviously email, through our website, through other social media outlets. And we still staff our office, although on a reduced staff. When I say that, probably 1/4 of who we would normally have here working is here, and we stagger it. So we move through different employees, and it gives them the ability to get out of their house. But while they're here in our building is set up in a fashion really that it's kind of naturally creates areas of distancing. So each person has their own office, so we can actually keep them separated from each other while they can still do certain functions. So with that said, the impact on us, although we felt it, it hasn't probably been as severe as it's been on some other firms. And I've been speaking to lawyers all across the Commonwealth, obviously in Pittsburgh and in Philadelphia. And many of those large firms are completely shut down.
Wow.
And lawyers are working entirely remotely from home. So they're feeling the pain probably much more so than we are here in Hopewell. But it's nationwide, and again, state by state, depending on what the governor has ordered in that given state, it would impact them differently in terms of legal services. Really, when that order first came out, it was kind of surprising to us because in times like these, in a crisis like these, and obviously none of us have ever had to experience this or live through anything like this. People don't necessarily realize the importance of having legal advice in a lot of different areas. And it was kind of surprising to us that was determined to be non-essential. Fortunately, the Supreme Court stepped in quickly and kind of reversed that. So we're glad to still be open and be able to serve the community.
Well, go ahead. No.
With the you can tell we have a lot of questions. When the shutdown happened, in terms of the courts kind of stopping or pausing and some of this stuff, when you think about, I think about, employment, I think about employment cases, but I think about injury cases, I think about abuse cases, you think about all of those things that are so critical. What do you think is going to be the biggest obstacle when all of this kind of opens back up, or how are you seeing it open back up?
Well, I was actually just speaking to Judge Mancini, President Judge Mancini, yesterday and the day before that about that very issue. And I think one of the real concerns for the court system is a complete shutdown is going to have a snowball effect, so that when things do open back up again in however long that's going to be, another month or two or more, there's going to really be a flood of activity in the courthouse. So at least keeping it open to the extent it's open right now in Beaver County has allowed the judges to continue to process cases that are important to be processed. And when you talk about PFAs, domestic abuse, those types of issues in Beaver County are essential life sustaining. So to the extent that those types of petitions are brought where they need to be dealt with by the court, they are being dealt with on a daily basis. So that hasn't stopped, and nor should it stop. Those are the types of things that absolutely are essential. In terms of, so our office is generally a civil practice. We also do criminal defense work. But in terms of personal injury, which we do a lot of, and workers' compensation, obviously if everyone has to stay home and no one can go anywhere or do anything, that affects our business. And that has been statewide. And I've heard that from lawyers really on both sides, both plaintiffs' lawyers and defense lawyers, because if people aren't living their lives and traveling and going to and from, fortunately, they're not getting involved in those types of incidents. But on the other hand, the lawyers who practice in those areas suffer again on both sides. So it's a rippling effect.
Well, I know. I mean, I think one thing that sets your law firm apart is you guys are so ingrained in the community. I mean, all of the partners, all the attorneys there. So what are you hearing from the public in terms of morale. We know that there's, a nursing home in Beaver County who's been very affected with COVID. So what are you hearing from that side?
So one of the areas that we also practice in is municipal law. And although some of the other areas that we do, like the ones I just mentioned, there's been a decline in those types of new calls. I think where we've really been able to be helpful is with regard to the municipalities that we represent. So we represent more municipalities in Beaver County than any other law firm or lawyer. And what we've been able to do is really devote more time, I think, than we ordinarily would have been able to those clients, and helping them prepare emergency declarations, disaster declarations, which allow municipalities a lot more freedom than they ordinarily would have. And it also allows them the ability to obtain emergency funding from PEMA and FEMA. So all of those communities we deal with on a daily basis. We've helped them in terms of how they can continue to hold their meetings, because if you think about it, all municipalities to a certain extent are essential and perform life-sustaining services, but they still need to follow the Pennsylvania Sunshine Law, which requires their meetings be open to the public and that they be present in person. Applications that get filed, for instance, for land development, things like that, there are timelines established by statute that have to be followed. So there's been a push in the Pennsylvania legislature to try and loosen some of those restrictions in this, just during this time period. It hasn't passed yet, but I'm understanding from what I just heard this morning that the Senate may be the Pennsylvania Senate may be taking action on this item just the beginning of next week. So that would be very helpful to municipalities. The disaster declaration has allowed municipalities to hold their meetings like we're having this discussion right now. So Zoom meetings with, obviously you can have a lot of participants involved in those meetings. So that declaration has allowed them to really continue to do their business. So we feel like, we're giving back in the sense that we can help those communities get through this. They've never had to deal with this before. Obviously, everyone's different in terms of their ability to handle technology. So not only are we trying to steer them in the right direction legally, but we're also helping them learn how to do this from a technological standpoint to the extent that we can. So lots of challenges, and every day presents new challenges. It's almost hourly there's a new challenge to be addressed. And what we've done is, with regard to all of our municipal clients, the services that we're providing that are associated with COVID, we're not charging any fees for. So we're doing that as a service to the community as well.
Wow. I was going to ask, I know you guys are always so gracious and so generous with the people of Beaver County. So that's not surprising at all, but it's amazing that you guys do that. What do you think? You're seeing a lot of learning curves and helping people kind of push up on that. But, has there been any kind of raise a light that you're seeing in terms of the community coming together, or, more lawyers? You guys work together anyhow, because there's a lot of partnerships on cases and stuff like that. But is there something else that has been going on in Beaver County that you've been just hopeful, bringing you hope?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we had our first our first Board of Governors meeting yesterday, virtually. So that's never happened before. One of the things with a lot of organizations that they're realizing is that their bylaws that help them operate, it's really the kind of Bible they have to follow in terms of how they do things, don't allow for their meetings to take place this way. So we've had to kind of hurry up bylaw amendments to allow them to hold governing meetings virtually, and then their general membership meetings virtually as well. So we had our first Board of Governors meeting virtually yesterday, and we talked about those very things. What can our bar association do to help each other as well as help the community? And we're doing that through our Young Lawyers Division, who's going to be setting up one of their first virtual happy hours very soon. They're also involved in a lot of charitable giving and fundraising projects, and that's something that I think I'm very proud of with our bar association, and that's always been a priority for us. So we are looking out into the community to those organizations, and there's a lot of charitable organizations that are suffering greatly right now because they're just not getting any donations for obvious reasons. Places that would normally accept food donations and clothes donations can't do it. They just can't accept those things right now for obvious reasons. So they're suffering. So we're trying to be creative and look for ways to help those types of organizations. And the other thing we started doing back in March is really staying in contact with our members, because it's one thing to be personally isolated as we are right now, but we don't want to lose those relationships. And it was important for me to let all of our members know that we can continue to communicate. If anybody needs help, we have an attorney's assistance committee in our bar association, and it's completely anonymous. So if you need help in whatever way that might be with your practice or personally, we have a committee in place to step in and speak to you, and it's all confidential. So those are the types of things that we're doing locally. On the state level, one of the things that this task force that I mentioned to you earlier met with the Pennsylvania Bar Association Board of Governors this morning on was the bar exam that's coming up in July.
Oh.
And the impact on an entire class of law students that would be graduating across the country. Obviously, our primary concern is Pennsylvania, but that bar exam is scheduled to take place in July. And it's certainly looking like that's not going to occur. When it comes to pushing back the bar exam, that's not a simple task to complete and get to an endpoint that makes sense, because it takes months for the grades to come back. Many of these students have job offers or job opportunities that are contingent on them taking the bar exam, obviously, and passing the bar exam. So when I mentioned that resource that the task force identified as a priority, we actually created 12 subcommittees. One of the subcommittees was to zero in just on that issue: law students, law schools, and the 2020 bar exam. So what we presented to the Board of Governors this morning was an innovative approach to allowing law students to begin to practice in the area of kind of like legal aid. So evictions, some domestic type matters, landlord-tenant matters, bankruptcy matters, things like that. They would work under the mentorship of an attorney, of a licensed attorney. And in doing that, it would kind of give them a pathway to taking some sort of an exam, whether it would be the same traditional bar exam or perhaps an online exam. And that's really what we're pushing, is that this bar exam, we don't want it to be pushed back. If it's possible to take it in a manner where you can maintain the integrity of it, of the process, that would be ideal. But going from 0 to 100 miles an hour in 2 months from a technological standpoint is going to be a challenge. Yeah. So that's one of those areas when you asked about the impact on attorneys. These are new attorneys, but again, like a lot of other things I've mentioned, there's this rippling effect that's going to kind of snowball into next year, because they may lose those job opportunities. You think about student debt, and not just law students, but all sorts of college students that are faced with debt in a job market now that's went from one of the most robust to perhaps one of the most devastated in such a short period of time. But these law students are, those debts still have to be repaid. Their forbearance is generally only 6 months, and then they need to start paying back on those loans. So if they can't take the bar exam, they will not have the opportunity to begin employment, to have the ability to pay back those debts. So that's kind of the approach we took this morning. It was well received by the Board of Governors, and it looks like the PBA is going to take an official position with the Supreme Court to try to help make that happen. So that's what we spent our time working on the last week.
So you haven't been busy at all.
No,
not
it's been a vacation for you.
No.
Wow. Well, Mike, thank you so much. I mean, you've just been such a world of knowledge. I think people aren't even, I know that we were talking about school loans today. We were talking with a professor today and talking about schools and graduation and all that other stuff. When you think about the legal system and law and the ripple effect of everything that's happening, I think we've just shined such a huge spotlight on the need for people like you doing really important work. in just continuing to make sure that things are moving forward.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Is there anything else that we missed? I was just thinking, oh, did we
I
miss?
know, it's like so interesting.
I know. I seriously could do like a 5-hour special on you. Which is Beaver County lawyers. Yeah.
Well, I did want to say this. You know, we've been fortunate, as I said earlier, to be able to continue to stay, you know, in business and stay open. We started 3 weeks ago with buying food from our local restaurants, and I know there's a lot of companies that are doing this. So we're supporting those restaurants, and we're having that food delivered to first responders. So we've been providing food to local police departments, local physicians, physical therapy locations, ambulance companies. So we've been doing that probably, I think we're 2 to 3 times a week right now that we've done for the last 3 weeks, and we're going to continue to do that. So I would just encourage small businesses that if you're doing okay and you're weathering this storm, those are good things to do to keep the community strong.
Yeah, they are. You just like make me welled up with tears.
I know.
So awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Trenny's, is Trenny's getting, are they still
Yeah.
for business for taking?
Trenny's.
There it is.
Ab-
I'm your plug. There it is. I'll be
Absolutely.
happy. Yes. Good job.
Yeah, thank you. It's by Beaver County. Yeah, exactly. Well, Mike, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Seriously, and we'll hopefully get to see you soon in person. But thank you
Yes.
for everything that you're doing.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you, everybody. Stay healthy. Stay strong.
Thank
You too. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.